Good morning, Quad Cities, and a happy Wednesday to you. It is Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. Welcome into Ask Andrew Live. Thank you, as always, for joining us here on this Wednesday morning. And if you miss an episode, no worries. You can always go back on the A Plus app, streaming on your favorite device to always replay that episode. Welcome in if it's your first time. Glad to have you here. If you have a weather-related question, which we're going to get to here coming up in just a few minutes, the quickest and easiest way is to text that question to us. We're going to put the number at the bottom of your screen, that is 309-304-0888, 309-304-0888, and 309-304-0888 for all the folks in the back. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know it was a little hectic with all of that snow that came in over the weekend. Honestly, one of the heavier snowfalls. It definitely ranked within the top 5 heaviest that we have seen in the month of November. And I'm going to kind of use that information to take you on a little bit of a journey. Can that info, with it being so snowy at the end of November, can that tell us or give us a little bit of a clue as to what the rest of winter could potentially look like? There's one year in particular that I'm focused on, and we're going to chat more about that coming up. So go ahead and put your questions and get them in now. Again, we'll start taking those right about 9:15, and we'll leave the rest of the half hour open for those. We have a little business to take care of first, though, and that is the first big cold snap of the season. And by big, I mean actual temperatures, not the wind chill, mind you. The temperature going below zero for the first time. This is something all of us are going to be talking about tomorrow morning. Yours truly included. So let's get started. Of course, we have a weather impact alert in place for tomorrow morning for those bitterly cold temperatures. And that includes, right below zero, up as low as 5 below zero for some of us, depending on where you live throughout the region here. So the wind chills, of course, will be just as bad. We're thinking about 15 to 20 below on those wind chills tomorrow morning. So you got to bundle up. I think there's also going to be a couple of school delays we're going to be scrolling at the bottom of the screen tomorrow morning too, as there usually are once we start to get this amount of cold in here. So what's the driving force behind it? Well, we're actually tracking a cold front right now, and it's got a couple of snow flurries associated with it, brief snow showers. I'll pull up the closer radar here in a second, but just wanted to show you the overall picture. There you see the winds coming in from the northwest. Ahead of that, you got a southwest wind. So we will briefly warm into the low 30s late this morning, and then in the afternoon, we'll start to see those temperatures crash a little bit. But there's the overall setup. Yeah, that front working its way in right now. I'm going to pull up a closer radar image just to see if any of these are potentially reaching the ground. The closer radar image gives us a better idea. I'm willing to bet this activity down here in Burlington and Macomb probably not reaching the ground. However, this activity right here north of Interstate 80, so there's Maquoketa. South of you, this is likely starting to reach the ground. So there may be a little narrow corridor of a dusting of snow or so right here along Highway 30 and also getting into Interstate 88 as we go into Whiteside County to the east. So yes, this is part of the forecast for today as that front is moving through. It will drive the opportunity for a couple of those snow showers. Then temperatures this afternoon, we're going to be heading down. So this is a morning high temperature likely right around 33 degrees. Look where we go tonight. This front not only clears out the flurries, but the clouds clear out as well. And when you get clear skies, you know what that does. It allows your temperatures to really drop considerably, and that's what we're going to do as an Arctic area of high pressure begins to build in. We'll be down to about 3 below zero as you wake up tomorrow morning, and I'll show you the wind chill tracker here in just a minute. But here's what's ironic about tomorrow. And I'm just thinking about this in my head, like, are you kidding me? So tomorrow is going to be the brightest day that we're likely going to have in about a week. And I mean full sunshine. Not very many clouds in the sky. But look what happens. It is the brightest day, but it's the coldest day. 17 degrees is all we're going to manage to get tomorrow afternoon. And the wind chills are going to be much lower than that. Likely going to see wind chills continue to remain in the single digits as we go into the afternoon. Ridiculous, I know. But stand by, because we're going to use, again, all of that data, this early season snowfall, this early season cold, to see what could potentially happen for the rest of the winter season. Before we get out of the cold, though, let's talk about this, the wind chill numbers tomorrow morning. Right about 15 to 20 below zero. is what it's going to feel like as we're stepping out the door tomorrow. So that's why, again, I think we're going to see a couple of school delays. Right now, there's no cold weather warning or cold weather advisory. That's what we used to call the wind chill warning and wind chill advisory. But certainly these numbers are going to bite. They're going to pack a punch as you get out tomorrow morning, because this is early. It is only the first week of December, for crying out loud. We're already talking about these low numbers. Can you imagine what this would be had this arrived in January or late or early February? It'd be much worse than this. So the fact that we're getting it started this early really kind of makes you wonder, my goodness, are we really going to be in for it in the next couple of months? And again, we're going to try and answer that for you here coming up. Now, there's a couple of systems that we're going to be tracking, especially as we get into the weekend and next week. Overall, this theme that the first half of December is going to be pretty active. Well, you look at this and it's holding true. We do have another chance for some snow showers later on Saturday and early morning on Sunday. Right now, I don't see too much accumulation-wise coming out of that system. But look at how quickly that Arctic air leaves, and that's kind of another characteristic of having the Arctic air come in this early in the season, is it can't really hold on very long. It is in and out really quickly, but nonetheless, it's impactful. So -3 tomorrow, you got 5 above for a low as you wake up on Friday morning. That's going to be cold. But within 36 hours, look at your overnight low temperatures. They're coming back up. We're talking about 20s for lows and then 30s for highs as we go into the weekend and early next week. Now, the system to watch, I think, next week is likely going to be midweek. Right now, I don't see it being too impactful. There's a lot of differentiations and a lot of variations on what track it's going to take, how warm it's going to be here, how cold it's going to be here. Right now, kind of going the warmer solution, which would provide the opportunity for a mix of rain and snow by sometime in the middle of next week. And then if you go to the 14-day tracker, which I showed this morning, still very winter-like in that we have lots of chances for rain and or snow, but it appears the coldest is right here, and then we're going to kind of take a step back away from that extreme cold and kind of even these temperatures out a little bit more. There's still going to be some ups and downs, but in terms of the worst of the cold in the near term, it's right here coming in tomorrow. I don't see a repeat of that, at least in this time period. Now, of course, it will be back eventually. We're just getting started, and meteorological winter just kicked off 2 days ago. Astronomical winter, we still have a couple of weeks yet. So this is really coming in fast and furious. That is for sure. So that's the chat on what's going on weather-wise. You'll definitely want to tune in tomorrow morning during GMQC. We'll scroll any school delays. Probably not going to be many cancellations, but I would expect plenty of delays tomorrow morning right at the bottom of your screen. The News 8 app on your phone is also a really good resource to have. You'll get the full list there as on our website at WQAD.com. Of course, we will continue to keep you updated on that all morning long. Let's talk about the couple of questions that I had this week for Ask Andrew. There were some excellent questions. The first of which we got Monday, and then we had another one here this morning. I'm going to start with this morning's question because this was really interesting. Now, I've had this one before, but it's been a while, so I thought it was good to go ahead and dig it back up because it was asked again over the weekend. So this came from Nancy, and I want you to pay attention to where Nancy lives. She lives in Moline. So I'm assuming, yep, you're here in the Metro Quad Cities. You're probably not in a rural part of Moline. Either way, you're going to be close to the Metro here. And she was asking, why are there no stars in the sky anymore? Valid question. If you live in the Metro Quad Cities, it's probably been quite a while since you've seen stars in the sky. So here's the breakdown of this. And I'm going to ask Alec, our director in the booth there, to go ahead and take this full screen if he can so you can see what's going on here. So why are we seeing fewer stars in the sky? Well, I want to take you back decades ago where we had fewer street lights, we had fewer people living here, and we had fewer houses. This all boils down to light pollution. We had far less light pollution several decades ago than we do now. Think about what's going on with our landscape as I speak. Have you guys been out to the Bettendorf region lately, that big sports complex? Have you noticed how many neighborhoods are going up? All the farmland is going away. That area is rapidly expanding. Soon it's going to be filled with street lights, lights from buildings. So that's why we're not seeing as many stars, especially if you live here in the Metro Quad Cities. More street lights leads to more light pollution with these rapidly expanding urban areas. Now, another interesting thing that I'll point out too, and I was reading about this from some German scientists, they have concluded too that the rate of new star development has actually declined by about 9-folds in the last several decades. So we're not getting as many new stars in the sky. And of course, with the light pollution, increasing, you're not seeing as many of those. So no, you're not going crazy. If you're in a city, you're likely not going to see very many stars. Now, if you want to see some stars, get out to some of our smaller hometowns, like a Geneseo or an Aledo or a Maquoketa, where there's not as much of an expansive urban footprint. Because right here in the Quad Cities, there's too much light going on. We got street lights and light posts and light lamps and building lights and house lights and all that stuff all over the place. You really got to get away from it. Get out into the country areas where there's not much light pollution. You'll be able to see the stars that we have just fine, including the Big Dipper, the Small Dipper, and the North Star, and all that good stuff. Even a few planets dance up there from time to time. So Nancy, you had a fantastic question. Thanks for sending it in. And again, it's been a couple of years since I've had that one, since I've covered it. So it was good. We brought it back up. It was time for a refresh, I think, for a lot of us. Now, the other question I had on Monday had to deal with the temperature and the snowfall type. I believe it was, I don't think it was Peter, and I believe it was from Clinton, not our Peter, but a different Peter, asking, why do we see different types of snow? For example, Saturday, we had a really dry snow to start, and then the snow kind of got heavier and wetter, and then before the snow came to an end, it got dry and powdery again. So the perfect explanation for this, for Peter's question, is it 100% has to do with temperature. So I'm going to show you something right here known as what we call a snow ratio. It is a number that we use to help forecast snowfall amounts. And here's how it works. The warmer the temperature as the snow is coming down, the lower the snowfall ratio you are going to see. And remember, we've talked about this numerous times. What do warmer temperatures allow versus colder temperatures? Warmer temperatures allow water content to go up. So the water content of snowflakes is much greater at these warmer temperatures compared to the colder temperatures, the lower colder temperatures, which doesn't allow much moisture to stick inside the snowflakes. So this is how we forecast snowfall amounts given the temperature profile that we see here at the ground. So for example, this weekend, past one on Saturday, we started off with temperatures in the low to mid 20s when the snow was falling. That meant we had a higher snow ratio. Those snowflakes had less moisture in them. They were lighter. They were fluffier. It was like a powdery snow. Then we got to the afternoon. Guess what? Our temperature started warming up, and our snow ratio number fell because those snowflakes started getting more water content in them, and they became heavier. Then when we got into the evening, the temperature fell again, and you can guess that. Yep, the snow ratio went right back up, and we started getting that powdery, fluffy snow. Now, why does it make a difference on snowfall total forecast? Because you're probably thinking, well, snow is snow. A flake is a flake, right? They're all going to add up the same. No, that is not the case. Let me show you this. So in this example, I'm going to give you 1 inch of water to work with. That's all I'm going to give you. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn that 1 inch of water into snow. But we're going to do it at 3 different temperatures. So take a look at this example, and I'll have Alec go back to full screen for me. So example number 1, we're going to take that 1 inch of water and we're going to turn it into snow at 34 degrees. That equates to a 7-to-1 snowfall ratio, and that means you're going to get 7 inches of snow. Because that 34, that's a warm temperature, right? That's going to lead to wet, heavy snow and a low snow ratio. Now I'm going to give you that same 1 inch of water, and we're going to make it snow when the temperature is 32 degrees. That's a 10-to-1 snowfall ratio, and guess what? That's going to pile up more because it's got more water content and the snowflakes are bigger and it's fluffier. So we're going to get 10 inches of snow out of that. We're not changing the amount of water I'm giving you. I'm just changing the temperature. Now let's get the extreme scenario where we have 1 inch of water and we're going to have it snow, but the temperature is only 10 degrees outside. Look at the huge difference. 1 inch of water with a 10-degree temperature will produce an extremely high snow ratio, and that'll give you 25 inches worth of snow. Isn't that crazy? Same amount of water, but different amounts of snowfall based on the temperature that water is falling through. So, can you see why forecasting snow is very difficult? It really depends on so many things. How much moisture you have, what is the temperature at the ground as that snow is falling through, let alone the temperature in the atmosphere as the snow is being created. I mean, it is a really, really complex process. And honestly, I know the science behind this, and even I'm amazed that here in 2025 we can forecast what we can forecast, given how complex that atmosphere sitting above us is. It is quite incredible. So those were our two questions. Now, really quickly, onto a piece of information. I want to give a shout out to James and Peter for kind of bringing this to my attention. So the snowfall we had this Saturday, that officially logs the snowfall during the month of November. Meteorological winter does not start until December 1st. So this snow, technically, if you broke down winter by as being December, January, and February, would not count towards the winter total, okay? So hang with me here for a second. So what I did is I went back and I wanted to see which Novembers had very heavy snowfall. Because again, this is unusual to get this amount of snow this early in the season. So we'll hang tight on this graphic and I'll have Alec take a full screen in really quickly so you can see. And then we'll come back and I'll point some of these things out. But here's what I wanted to show you. So November of 2018 was the snowiest November on record for us here in the Quad Cities. We had 18.4 inches of snow that month. Do you remember it? I know a lot of you in the comments when we posted this a couple days ago said, yeah, I remember 2018. I remember I was stuck at home and I couldn't get to work and the stores were a madhouse and the streets were a mess. Yeah, that was quite a year for us. I remember it too. I was working here. So check this out though. That winter, which would have been the winter of 2018-2019, because 2019 followed for January and February, what was the total winter snowfall then? It was 40.1 inches. That winter season that followed that heavy snowfall in November was a blockbuster for snow, way above the average total that we would see here in the Quad Cities. So what I've also done is I wanted to give you some more examples, because when we look at this data, we don't want to look at just one example. We want to look at a whole bunch of others to see, is there some kind of correlation? Is there a relationship between the two where we can maybe say, oh my goodness, perhaps, in the next few months, we're really going to see a lot of snow too, like we did in 2018. So here's the top snowiest Novembers on record. And of course, 2018 is the number one spot. The number two spot was 1974. We had 15.6 inches that November of that year, followed by 1925 at 10.8. 2015, that wasn't that long ago, 10 years ago, 9.9 inches. 1975 had the same, and here we are at 2025 with 9.2 inches of snow in the Quad Cities. Here's the correlation. This is what happened that following winter for these same years. So we're looking to see, are we seeing this same relationship between 2018, 2019 with these other really snowy November years? And honestly, there was only one year I found out of that bunch down here, those other years, that was above the average, and that was 1974, where we had 35.7 inches of snow for that entire season. That was 1974, 1975, by the way. The season, of course, spans 2 years. 1925, 1926 only had 16.9. 2015, 11.3. 1975, 76 had 11.2. And of course, we don't know yet for 2025 because we just entered December. The other interesting thing, and I didn't plot this on this graphic here yet. So there was a strong La Nina in 1975, the winter of 74-75. Neutral conditions in the winter of 25-26. Weak La Nina in 2016 and 2017, and a weak El Nino in 1975-1976. When it comes to what was going on here, in the winter of 2018-2019, we had a weak El Nino. Right now, we have a La Nina, so the opposite of that. So we kind of have to throw out that aspect of what we saw back in 2019. But that certainly is an interesting case here, where we had that early season snow in November, and then we still had quite a blockbuster snow to come for the following winter. One more piece of data, and then I'm going to get to your questions, because if you've been watching me for a long time, you know how I love to use this tool from the Midwest Regional Climate Center. It is called the Accumulated Winter Season Severity Index. It essentially is breaking down the winter by snowfall and temperatures and how long that snow has been on the ground to tell you how bad or how easy the winter has been. So here's our current winter severity. As it stands today, we are right now officially in a severe winter. And you can see that with the line there that's on your screen. The black line translates to where we are in terms of the winter season so far and its rating. What about that winter of 2018 and 2019, the one example I just showed you where that winter gave us 40 inches of snow? Well, I'm going to put my arrow on the screen here. So here's our winter, present day, in the black. And you can see, yes, we're in the severe category. But that winter, 2018, 2019, because that snow came earlier, than what we saw this year, they were in the extreme winter category. And in fact, we stayed rather, in the extreme category throughout a good chunk of December, only dropping down to severe and then again average once we approached January. But look at where the winter ended up. It was trending to be pretty moderate because we saw warmer temperatures and the snow kind of backed off. But then all of a sudden, we got this late winter season snowfall in late January, early February that shoved that severity right back up to nearly extreme, but back into severe. So if we were to have a winter like 2018, you can kind of see where things are going. It was what we call front-loaded to begin with, kind of backed off a little bit on snow and cold, and then we backloaded it all again at the end of the season. So this is what we would call a bookend winter, where you've got a harsh start in the front, mild, pretty easy throughout the middle, and then it gets harsh and cold again at the end of winter. So some really cool data, and I hope that kind of helps and gets your brain moving and thinking about what could possibly go on here for the next several weeks. Really wanted to do a deep dive into that so you can see what we look at in terms of meteorologists to help us give us clues as to what's going to happen for the next couple of weeks. So with that, now is your time to shine, ladies and gentlemen. We have got your questions. I've got them loaded up on my phone here, and we're going to get started. We've got a youngster with us this morning. I see Noah, who is 12, right at the top of the list here in the chat, asking, what is thundersnow and how does it work? We love thundersnow. And by we, I mean myself and a whole bunch of other meteorologists. We just think thundersnow is the coolest thing. So let me see if I have a graphic. If I don't, that's okay. But I always like to search my my library of knowledge to see if I have something that I've already made up, because I know that I've talked about this in the past, but I may not have anything. I know this time I do not. But I can tell you thundersnow forms kind of in a similar process that a thunderstorm does. Now, obviously, we don't have temperatures that are really warm. They're still really cold. But with some of these really strong winter storms, you can get enough lift and enough forcing upward and enough of a change in temperature from the ground to the top that you could actually get these cumulonimbus or thunderstorm clouds to form. And yes, given the snowflakes, which also have friction, just like raindrops, as those snowflakes are crashing into each other, that produces these different charges. And in order to neutralize those charges, you got to have lightning. So if you get under thunder snow, I can guarantee you're going to see some really heavy snowfall rates. In some cases, those can exceed 2 to 3 inches per hour. It is impressive to have thunder snow. I've seen it about 3 or 4 times in my lifetime, and it keeps getting cooler. It is so cool. We have a question from Chris and Kayla in Walnut wanting to, they got a joke first. So here's the joke. What type of cloud is so lazy because it will never get up? It's fog. I think that's a pretty clever joke. I like that. I'm going to save that one for my school visits, and then they're probably going to throw eggs at me, but that's okay. Their question is, we've heard the term ice quake before. What is it and how does it work? Thank you as always. So we're going to go retro here on Ask Andrew this morning. You're going to see some old graphics, and that's okay because they're still graphics. They're oldies but goodies. So this is a graphic that Eric Sorensen made, who of course was here years ago. So we're talking about frost quakes. That's likely probably not going to happen tonight with this big temperature drop because we really haven't seen the water get into the ground and freeze yet because we have this deep snowpack that's keeping the ground above freezing. But what happens is you get a quick drop in temperature. That water, especially if the ground is exposed with no snowpack on it, will quickly freeze and it causes the ground to expand. Because we all know what happens when water freezes. It expands, and that's why you get potholes in the road. Well, think of this as potholes in your yard, except they're giant cracks. So what happens is that expansion causes the ground to move, and you get these mini explosions that are called cryozeums, or frost quakes. Now, we're likely not going to see that again with this because the ground is shielded from the colder temperatures because of the snow. The ground is actually still above freezing and right about 39, 40 degrees at last check. This would occur, though, and we would easily have this tonight if we didn't have any snow on the ground and the ground was fully exposed to those really colder temperatures that we're expecting to move in. Phenomenal question, and thank you for the joke. I'm going to save that one, and again, I'll take it to my school visits. We'll see what the kids think about that. I'm sure they'll love it. Lois is watching. Good morning to you. Marcus from Moline. I know who that is. Someone who helped me change my flat tire the other day. He's the best. What is about snow that makes it so hard to predict? I think the best answer to that question is what we talked about earlier with those snow ratios, it's the different temperatures. Because if you don't nail that temperature forecast as the snow is falling just right, you're really going to have a screwed up snowfall total forecast for sure. The other thing is the track of the storm. The track of the storm makes all the difference in the world. If that storm takes a 30, 40-mile jog to the north or the south, you're going to shift that heaviest snow band. And oh my goodness, does that really mess up your forecast too. So two things, temperature and second, track of the storm. Those are the biggest headaches that we have to face when we're forecasting winter storms. Billy, good morning. You know, one of these days, Billy, I promise you, we're going to do the correlation coefficient. I just need a good example. We just haven't had that yet. But it will come. We'll get there one of these days. Good morning to you. Wondering how many tornadoes did Hurricane Melissa produce? Thank you for your time, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. So, of course, we're talking about Hurricane Melissa, which was an extremely powerful storm that blasted areas well south of our country. Thankfully, it really didn't do anything here. But nonetheless, it was definitely a storm that is ranking in the records. In fact, I believe one of the aircraft reconnaissance that went in there found a record number of wind gusts in terms of the speed of those winds. So that was definitely a very powerful storm. Now, in terms of hurricanes, because this storm really didn't go over the United States per se, it's hard to tell. There usually are a lot of land spouts that are going to be associated, or water spouts, that are associated with these storms. So while it was over the ocean, I can guarantee you it was producing water spouts and tornadoes within it. But we have to remember where Hurricane Melissa went, going through parts of the Caribbean where there was extensive damage. So sorry, I don't have an answer for that specific question, Billy, but I can guarantee there were some with that storm. You very rarely go in a hurricane and not have tornadoes built into it. We have Riley in the chat again this morning, and I think she's got a joke as well. We got lots of jokesters in here this morning. I love it. So Riley says, why did the snowman become a detective? He always had a cool demeanor. I love that too. And Riley's asking, is this snow going to stick around for Christmas? Yes, I am going to go full in on us having a white Christmas this year because this snowpack is deep and I don't see a ton of warmth, at least right now, coming our way yet. So I think we're going to keep this snow on the ground for Christmas. So I think we have a really good shot at seeing a white Christmas this year. Let's see. Tyler's asking, are we going to have any wind chill alerts put out for tomorrow? I don't think so personally, because wind chills are going to be in the 15 to 20 below range. If they get a little bit worse than that, we'll have a cold weather advisory. I don't think we're going to have a cold weather warning tomorrow, but I wouldn't be surprised again. If the winds pick up more than we're currently forecasting, we would have a possibility of seeing a cold weather advisory. But as of right now, that doesn't look like it's going to be the case. We're looking at these wind chill values that are definitely between 10 and 15, perhaps at worst 20 below, but you really got to get a good wind going to get that kind of a number. I think the reason you're going to see not cancellations necessarily, but delays tomorrow morning is we have to remember that we have a lot of rural school districts where the buses have to go out miles from their home base to get the kids that live out in the country. And that's kind of a dangerous situation if you were to get a bus out and that bus stalls or just stops working, and then the kids are left in that bus, and you're talking about temperatures below zero and wind chills like this. That's not a good scenario for the kids to be even if they're sheltered by the bus. You're still going to get these cold temperatures that will invade that space if they're out long enough. So that's one of the main reasons you'll likely see a couple of delays scrolling on the bottom of your screen tomorrow. We're in a really mixed environment. We have a lot of urban kids, but we also have a lot of rural kids too, especially I think of, where I live, the Geneseo School District. There's a lot of kids that have to come in and be bussed in from the country, the surrounding more rural areas. So that's likely why we'll see again a couple of those delays as we get into tomorrow. We have got perfect timing for our end again. I don't know how you guys do it. You guys do a phenomenal job of getting us out of here on time. You always have some great questions as well. So I want to thank you for joining me this week. Next week, I believe I'm taking one more Wednesday off for the year. So I will not be with you next week for Ask Andrew Live. But after that, I think we're back on schedule, if you will. I got to remember, when is Christmas this year? It's on Thursday, the 25th. So Christmas Eve, it's a normal day, I believe. Pretty sure we're going to have Ask Andrew live then. So other than next Wednesday, I should be with you throughout the rest of the year and into early next year too, the good Lord willing. So thanks for hanging around today. Appreciate your questions as always. If you think of one offhand while we're not here for the live chat, no worries. WQAD.com, hit the weather tab. Ask Andrew. You can submit it right there. I'll see you coming up later this morning on GMQC at 11. Make it a great Wednesday, and you stay warm tomorrow. I'll see you later.